You're with Julian on the brown note, and the thing I've got most wrong is the Taliban. I've got a really good strike rate when it comes to elections and when it comes to, how the political landscape will play out. And most things morally I'm usually pretty good with, but nothing have I got quite so universally wrong as the Taliban. Not that I had any reason to suspect them. So when the Americans pulled out of Afghanistan after a longer war than Vietnam, a bigger failure of a war and probably more of a war crime. Well, probably not more of a war crime than Vietnam was, but thanks Donald Trump for that, by the way. I know you tried to blame Biden for Americans pulling out of Afghanistan and leaving everyone in Afghanistan that had helped you for years to suffer whatever fate was coming, but it was Donald Trump that made that deal. Awkward. And I said at the time that people shouldn't be as afraid of the Taliban as they're not going to come back here. I said basically, the leaders of the Taliban want to rule the country and enrich themselves, and they want to gain mainstream international legitimacy, and they want to be able to trade off the country's assets and to be a trade route and to do all of these things, and that they would not persecute women and girls like everyone was saying. Well, actually they have done exactly that. I said there was no possibility almost of them doing that because it would make them international pariahs and no one would go near them and they wouldn't be able to enrich themselves. They would have no international legitimacy. And they've done exactly that, and in fact they've done it much worse. And I just don't really fathom why. I guess there's a religious version of some people just want to watch the world burn. I've sort of thought maybe there's some geopolitical angle here, but they're on the border of China. China aren't going into bat for an Islamic fundamentalist religion with the Uyghur population next door to Afghanistan. It's never going to happen. And neither are the Russians. Not when they've been fighting them in places like Chechnya and Afghanistan. So it just really does come down to religious fundamentalism. They're at the stage now where they're just basically blocking every woman from doing anything at all and winding the clock back to 2000. So I got that massively wrong. They really just are massive religious fundamentalists. And it's horrible. And in the end, the Americans going in there caused a lot of death and bloodshed and destabilised the world. But they've left Afghanistan in the manner that it was when they got there. It's worth pointing out, of course, that the Americans were in Afghanistan promoting Islamic fundamentalism as early as 1973, and when the communist Russian-leaning government of Afghanistan were attacked by the northern tribes and the Pashtuns, who became the Mujahideen, who became the Taliban, the Americans funded and trained them, including siding with Osama bin Laden throughout the 80s. I've done many pieces on that. And the Taliban were victorious that time. And then America decided that actually we're going to try and overthrow the people that we put in power with their invasion. And 20 years later, some countries just can't be overthrown. I do wonder about the Pashtuns, because the Pashtun belief system goes back beyond Islam by some centuries, and some of their beliefs are not really in the same vein as Islamic fundamentalism. So I don't know how that pans out or how everything will pan out, but why on earth they are persecuting girls the way that they're persecuting girls is baffling, other than the fact that they're religious fundamentalists. Some people just are, I guess.